Bosses. Bosses. I've mentioned them a couple of times in this, but I figured that it's like worth dedicating a video to them because I think that they're so interesting. And a lot of people have tried exploring them and will continue to try exploring them because this is really fertile ground for any type of Universes Beyond style set that's inspired by a video game. Lots of video games have bosses. In fact, right now, as of the making of this video, hopefully I can publish it while this is still going on too, so you can check it out. There is a card design contest in Custom Magic, the weekly winner is the judge contest that's centered around build me a boss, make a mechanic that seems really obvious. I think I've got a little bit of a leg up here because I've been working on this for so long. I don't know that the card I submitted is the best representation of it, but I did what I did and whatever. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. But I'm interested to see what other people post too, because again, like I said, this is such like a common thing. And I've seen a lot of other custom Magic cards that people have designed around this idea of what a boss is. So let's explore like where I landed and where I came from. So I explored many different ideas from the start, but this is one that I thought I'd show off as an early contender. This is a design by ErinsHere. They actually made a Reddit post, and the point of this wasn't to explore boss types, it was to explore variations on battle types, and this was one of them. This is around the time that battles were originally introduced back in, it was Invasions of whatever the heck that set was. Anyway, with all the sieges and stuff. So this is a battle creature. That's what's unique about this type, which presents some problems, potential rules problems, but also like intuition problems, because same with planeswalker creatures. You don't want planeswalker creatures to be able to take damage in both ways, both as a creature and as a planeswalker. Like, should it be losing loyalty or should it be being damaged as a creature? You don't want it to be both because it's unintuitive. It feels like double dipping on the damage, and that doesn't feel right as a player. And I think that there also might be some rules issues with that. But in any case, there is a strong precedent that WotC wants to say you either do one or the other, not both, which is why planeswalker creatures will have indestructible, or they will lose the planeswalker type when they become creatures, or whatever. They have various solutions to that. The solution here that ErinsHere came up with is during your turn, this is a worm creature, otherwise it's a boss battle that you protect. So it actually has both permanent types on the card itself, which is useful if you're gonna like try to tutor for it, then you're gonna, be able to find it. And it has both a battle type and a creature type on it. But in actuality, when it's on the field, it's either one or the other. It is either a battle boss or it is a creature worm. So it's not a battle worm. And that's important rules-wise because non-creature permanents cannot have creature types. So if it loses the creature permanent type, it has to also lose the worm type, which is why it's worded the way that it is here. In any case, this kind of gets around that. So you can attack with it, and then it becomes this big threat. And then when it's not your turn, it's something that you have to defend. This really hits a lot of notes thematically and mechanically too. Like, one note that it hits is you are really, really incentivized as a designer to make a very efficient and strong card. Like, this is a 5-mana 10/8 trample haste ward 2. And the reason why you would need to do that, basically, as a designer to make it so efficient is because it's a creature with two downsides. Big downsides. One is it can be attacked directly to be removed, so it's even more easy to remove than creatures are, which are already pretty easy to remove. In fact, if you want to kill it with red removal, red-based damage removal, you don't even care about its toughness in that case, you just care about its defense counters, and here it's even easier to remove than an 8 toughness creature. And the other downside is that it can't ever defend, because when it's not your turn, it's not a creature. So that is very thematic, I think, and flavor-wise to video game bosses. Like, yeah, they're going to hit hard, they're really super big and powerful, but they're also usually kind of clumsy, they have weak spots, they get stunned, and you're kind of worming your way in there, worm, and like getting in there and doing lots of damage on it, right? And so that makes sense too. It also works thematically because, as how are you going to deck build if you have bosses? Well, you're going to need to defend them. So you're going to want creatures, probably chumpy creatures, probably small ones. So that's going to be your bottom end. And then your top end is going to be, of course, the battles that are these big, splashy, efficient things, come down and do a lot of damage. So that works really well. So why did I stray away from it? Well, I found it really restrictive design space, for one. They needed to all be aggressive cards in order to matter, and the only thing they can do is attack. They can't really defend, right? It doesn't make sense. You know, the activated and tap abilities aren't really going to be important on a card like this. So it just was kind of restricted in terms of what you could actually do with it. And that was really limiting, especially if I wanted to design an archetype around it. Then it's like a lot of my bosses ended up feeling kind of similar no matter how hard I tried. Another one, this is not a big reason I stayed away from it, but it has a really long type line. Like, this is a creature with only one creature type. A lot of creatures have two. If you have two creature types and the boss type on there, there are 6 types in the type line. Because almost all of them are going to be legendary, right? Or maybe all of them are. So that's why I stayed away from it. But, you know, I did explore some cards. So, like, here's Baronade Electric Parasite, which is an attempt, you know, to capture these different boss fights. But I decided to go in a different direction. It just wasn't working for the set. There wasn't huge design space, hard to design synergies around it, especially if I want to include it as part of archetypes. So went with this when the bosses are simply creatures that when they die, they transform. That's it. That's where I went. And I'll show you the backside of this card too, which is a card that we've seen before in these design videos. Very straightforward, easy idea. Here, what the flavor is of this boss ability is it's representing a second phase. Mechanically, what this card is doing rules text-wise, this isn't really capturing the flavor of the Phantom Ganon fight very well. That's not the goal of this card. It's meant to like really capture as a signpost uncommon. But in any case, that's one thing that it can do. Another thing is it can tell the story of encountering a boss later on in the game. So in this case, this is Aghanim Dark Wizard. As you first encounter him in the light world, when he's sacrificing Zelda, he's got this sacrifice ability. Then you later encounter him in the dark world, where there's like 2 illusory copies of him that you also have to fight. So yeah, just like really straightforward, simple idea, really easy to design synergies around. Anything that cares about death triggers, this works really well. Self-sacrifice works really well, both because it's great because you have 2 things to sacrifice. That's number 1. Like anything that creates a token when it dies is great for sacrifice. This essentially does that. But also because sometimes you're going to want to sacrifice it so you can get to its backside, transformed side. Maybe that's the side that has the ability you really want to utilize right now. And so self-sacrifice helps you do that. So really, yeah, really great to design synergy with. Also, inherent card advantage. When this creature dies, it comes back to the battlefield as another creature, means that it's going to go well in mid-range and control. And thematically, that makes a lot of sense. Like if I'm thinking about making a deck that's centered around bosses, you know, mid-range and control makes a lot more sense to me than, say, aggro or tempo would. Well, in this case, this is a tempo card, but this isn't centered around bosses, this strategy. In any case, that's one way to use it. Another is you can have it transform into something totally else, like if that makes sense for the boss fight. So here we have Girahim from Twilight Princess, and they die, right? Yeah, that's right. When he dies, he transforms into Demise's sword, which is like Girahim is literally the, you know, embodied representation of of Demise's sword. And that's also what happens at the end of the game. You fight Girahim, and then Demise uses him as a sword. And so that makes sense from a flavor perspective, too. And then the other thing you can do here, well, this is kind of I'll get a little sidetracked here. This was for a design challenge on Beacon of Creation. I submitted this card for. This is an attempt at like a non-legendary, but also trying to hit a few notes from that particular design challenge, but I kind of like it. It's like Suspicious Mountain. So it's basically just a mountain, you know, but then if it dies, then it turns into a stone talus. So it like wakes up like the stone talus from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. So you can do that too, where like you're representing multiple phases of a fight. And I think this does make sense here. If I'm going to have a non-legendary boss, something like the stone talus as a golem kind of makes sense. But here's another thought too. Explore another boss. Ganondorf, King of Evil, as he transforms into Ganon. Again, kind of multiple phase fight. And when he dies, he's going to help you basically wipe the board, just as Ganon does in Ocarina of Time. But I had a thought, like, okay, what if I combined it with the trial battle type, you know, that I had that whole other video on. And so I could represent you having to beat a dungeon, but oh no, when you've defeated the dungeon, it's not over yet because you still have to fight the boss. And so now we get that creature type in a new, interesting way. And here's Volvagia and that ability that represents that. So I think that this is definitely where I'm not changing this for my set. This is for me. I'm settled here. I really like the idea that boss is just a creature type, and for this set in particular, that type has this consistent identity that when it's defeated or destroyed, it transforms. That's it. That's all it is. I think that, in a theoretical world where this entered Magic canon, WotC canon, and there were other sets that were going to utilize the boss creature type, they might do different things. Instead of when it dies or transforms, it might do something else. Or maybe they keep that identity consistent and all of them do this. Like many ninjas have ninjutsu, like that kind of thing. And they keep repeating that. I don't know. But that's the thought process here. And I'm really happy with how this turned out and the way that it interacts as a limited mechanic, especially how easy it is to design cards that get better when it's in a deck that runs bosses. Yeah, it's kind of the opposite direction in some ways than not that card, than the boss battles, and that these are really, really efficient, or they need to be really, like this one's not efficient enough actually because they have multiple downsides to it. Whereas actually these should be less efficient. So this is a 3-mana 1/2 with flying. Not very good. And it does have, when it deals combat damage to a player, proliferate, but this should be 2 mana for this effect, but it has to be more expensive because of the inherent card advantage. So it's almost the opposite of their idea, but I think it works here. I'd love to know your thoughts on it, and if there's still time, and you've seen this video, somewhere close to where I uploaded it, go check out, I'll link it in the description, the design challenge for this week on our custom Magic, and submit your own idea for what a boss could be. I'll catch you in the next one.